Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are starting a new study in the Book of Micah, the prophecy of Micah. Um, now, as we are journeying through the Old Testament, we are now in the last section of the Old Testament, the writings of the prophets. Now, the way our Bibles are arranged, the way they arrange the books, so they're arranged in sections. So from Genesis to Esther, you have a historical accounting, and then they arrange these books pretty much as the scholars have said. This is the dating of the books, and there is a lot of we rely on their information on that. I'm going to say their expertise, their study, putting together events of the Old Testament, okay, and then that um, this is how we get the timeline. Let me bring up my screen to kind of give further pictures of that. So this is uh, our timeline here. Now this chart, okay, is a biblical chart. Look at all these dates here. If you go all the way back from an Old Testament perspective to about 4,000 years, how they figure it. Now, I don't know how you can say this is not maybe 100% accurate, but I think it gives us an idea. So as you can see, all of the Old Testament books, and then some of the events in the books with their timeline. Okay, now we come down. Let's go down to when we come to the last section, the writing of the prophets. Now, the reason why, again, this is important, I'm taking the time to remind us of this time, is I'm going to say, let's pick it up around Joel. Okay, the book of Joel here. Okay, let me. So the book of Joel, okay, as you can see here, and then around 835 BC. Now, this is our charts. This is the charts of the kings, okay, of Israel. The kings of Israel. And if you kind of go back to around 1025, by the way, all the dates are not always agreed upon amongst the scholars. And I won't get into that. Like I say, I'll let the scholars debate that. But as you can see, you have Saul, the first king. They have Ishbosheth. But anyway, David and then Solomon. Now, when Solomon um, dies, he passes on the reign to Rehoboam. Excuse me. Now, Rehoboam is the excuse me. Rehoboam, his son, because of his foolishness, splits the kingdom. And so um, Jeroboam, who had fled from Solomon's presence, he fled to Egypt. And then after Solomon dies, the people come and they bring him back. Now, it was kind of interesting. God had prophesied to Jeroboam that he would reign. He actually tried to keep the nation together. But Rehoboam, when he took the throne, he asked advice from Solomon's counselors, the people who've been around with Solomon, and they said, if you be kind to the people, in other words, when your father reigned, great king, right? But he overtaxed the people. But if you be kind to them, lighten their load. In other words, lighten up on the taxes, they will serve you forever. But Rehoboam listened to the advice of his friends, and they said, "Man, you should be even harder. You should tell them, look, um, my pinky finger would be worse than my father." So, as a result of that, then the people split, and Jeroboam became king of Israel, and then Rehoboam became retained two of the tribes. So um, Israel, 10 tribes split, and it came under the rulership of Jeroboam. Now, in some respects, both of them are evil. Both did evil. Okay, so the kings of Israel through the 10 tribes, this was known as the northern kingdoms, whereas Rehoboam retained two tribes, which was the southern kingdom, which really kind of which is Judah and Benjamin. Now, so these are all the kings. This is kind of a chart of their kingdom. The ones in green are the good kings. So as you can see, let me see if they have it. As you can see, not many good kings. Okay, which is a shame. All right, so when we get to Hosea, okay, which is right around Ahaz, right around the same time. But this is the northern kingdom, and they go into captivity. They are taken captive by the Assyrian Empire. So about I want to say about 80 years before Israel. Let's go back to my timeline here so I can get a better timeline here. So the reason why I'm bringing this out too is when we get to the last section of the New Testament, I mean the Old Testament, which is called the writings of the Bible. This is why I'm going through all this. The writings of the prophets, or the prophetic utterances, the voices of God, who begin to prophesy and to warn Israel to turn from their sins, to warn them. Okay, they don't, and as a result, this is what we have. You have the northern kingdom falling first, and as you can see, Joel, and I want to see the timeline here, where you see Joel begins to prophesy around 835. Now, the reason why this is important, let me go to another chart here. Let's do this. Look at the table of contents. All right. So, and there's a reason why I'm taking the time to explain all this, because I'm not following the normal chart. As you can see, Isaiah. So when we get back to Genesis all the way down to Esther, that's one section of the Bible. And then there's Job to the Songs of Solomon. That's another section. So this last section, which we call the writings of the prophet, is divided into two sections. The major prophets, which is Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentation, Ezekiel, and Daniel. And then we see here Hosea, and it goes all the way to Malachi. Now, what is interesting about the minor prophets, however, when you get to Daniel, what you don't realize is the timeline. And the reason why I chose to go with the writings of the prophet in a chronological order is because I wanted us to get the feel of the prophetic voice for the time. So when we start with Hosea, and actually I think we started with Joel, then Amos, then Hosea. Obadiah, we're going to do that later. And even though it is put here, the timeline puts it a lot further. Okay. Now, but Hosea, from Hosea all the way to Zephaniah, the timeline is really, these books are before the Isaiah, okay, and somewhat during Isaiah. Now, if you look at here, you have Isaiah, then Jeremiah. All right, we're going to, so right now, we just completed Isaiah. So then we're going to start with Micah. Why? Because of the timeline. So let me go to our chart. So again, you have Joel, right? And then you have Jonah. Then you have all of Isaiah's prophecies here. But then, let's see, where it you have. Well, let me kind of let me. I don't know if y'all can see that, but I wanted to look at you from the how they chart the books. Now let's go back to Joel, which is 835 BC, and then we have Amos, Jonah, and Hosea. Now we've already taught these books before we studied Isaiah. So now that we studied Isaiah, we're going to go back in a chronological order or dating, and we're going to pick it up with Micah. So where you at, Micah? Right here. So Micah is around 735 BC, and you will see he's right around the time of Hezekiah. This is why we know this date is pretty close, okay? So then you see, so when we do that, we're going to do Micah, and then we're going to do Nahum. That's where he's at here. Nahum. Let's see where you at. Zephaniah, Nahum right here, and then Habakkuk. Okay, so we're going to be studying these books before we get into Jeremiah. And the reason why is because, again, when we look at all of these voices here, you see a different kind of what is being said. So, for example, before we started Isaiah, so Isaiah, but including, but not limited to, we go back to Joel, right? Go back to Joel, and then Amos. These are the beginnings of the prophetic voices, the beginnings of warning Israel to turn from their sin. Okay, so that's the flavor. So then you see with the prophecy, especially when we get to Isaiah, we just concluded Isaiah. Then you see also not only is God warning Israel, but he's also prophesying of the judgment to come, the future restoration of Israel, the eternal plans for Israel, the Messiah, okay, the prophecy of the Messiah, the new heavens and the new earth. Now that's why I said, now when we read this, I wanted us to get the feel of the time. So, right here, we see that the kings of Israel was the first to fall. Okay, Israel was the first to fall. Let's show you this timeline here. The time, where is the fall of, oh, Ahaz. I'm looking for King Ahaz here. Hezekiah, no, okay, right here, Hosea, 725 BC. Right, so look at that. 725 BC. So Israel falls. Let me do my little cheat sheet here. Do I want this? No, got the wrong one. I'm doing this just to kind of give us a picture of the timeline here. Uh, all right. So seven Hosea, Hoshea is 725 and then 596. So about 129 years before the fall of Jerusalem. So let's go back to this chart here. Notice might be kind of tedious. But so Hosea right here is about 129 years before we see the Babylonian captivity. Now later I'll get into really getting into the turning point in human history with this Babylonian human history changes at this point. But from Israel's perspective, now we see God beginning to what? Prophesy, right? Um, right around this time here, okay, a little before Joash, he begins to prophesy to Israel, change your ways. They don't listen. They don't listen. So Israel is the first to fall, right? They are deported to Assyria. So for all this time, for the 129 years, um, the northern kingdom is desolate. Now remember, Israel's capital is Samaria. Later we see these Sumerians because of this right here, this captivity, this desolation. Um, Foreign people start to move in, foreigners move in, and then they mix with Israelites, producing Samaritans. So that's why when you see the attitudes in the New Testament, this is why. This is where it comes from. Um, um, the Samaritans. But the city of Samaria was actually the capital of the northern kingdom, Israel. So, from time wise, again, um, where we're going to pick it up with Micah. And where is Micah at? Micah, where you at? Because this is where Nahum, um, 730, I think, right? Okay, here we go. Here's Micah around 735 BC. All right, I know that's kind of tedious, but um, I know it's kind of tedious. um, uh, but this is why I'm doing it this way, and I'm saying that because the reason why um, instead of going, as you can see here, instead of teaching, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, and then we go back to, let's say, Hosea. To me, it could be confusing. It can be confusing as to what is being said and why, having gone through all of this. So now I am going as best we can in a chronological order. And so we're going to pick it up at Micah. So we've already done Hosea, Joel, and Amos. But then we're going to pick it up at Micah. Okay? We'll pick it up at Micah. So this is why we're starting in the book of Micah. Now, why do we know in sort of our timeline? Here we go. Verse 1 says, the word of the Lord that came to Micah, the Moshite, which he saw regarding Samaria and Jerusalem in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, king of Judah. So this is why we can locate, and why scholars, I depend mostly on them for this kind of in-depth study, why scholars are able to give us these dates. Notice the internal testimony itself gives us Micah's timeline. About 735, right? About 735. So we see that Isaiah, he's kind of a contemporary of Isaiah, and so we can see all of that. All right, we will get into um, obviously more in the next study. This I just want to do a brief intro in this one, so we'll get into um, Micah, in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.